We do have one action item on the agenda, which we'll handle first. So I'll call the meeting to order, and we'll do a roll call of officers.
Larson,
Here.
Fratelli,
Here.
Eaton,
Here.
Lyman,
Here.
Ronnie, here, Westwood, Whistler.
Both of them contacted us, so that they were going to be present. The first order of business is Resolution 3582. It's appoint the city or the county attorney for conflict cases. This is a resolution where if a case comes up that Denison has a conflict with, the county will step in and take that case for us, and vice versa for us too. So I hope that explains it to you well. Any questions?
So moved.
Yep, I'll take a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Any comments? Comments from the public? Let's get this out of the way. Roll call vote.
Fratelli,
Yes.
Eaton,
Yes.
Lyman,
Yes.
Ronnie, yes.
Thank you very much. It's a very important piece of business that we need to get past today. Means that we do have some cases coming up. Next thing is use of city-owned land permit, fun run.
Yes, so the Red Lodge Area Community Foundation has submitted their application to use Lions Park once again for the Fun Run event. This year it will be on Saturday, September 4th. And nothing really out of the ordinary. Again, this is a reoccurring event that's happened every year except for last year. But just as usual, they've got a lot of things in place for parking and traffic patterns with volunteers and Red Lodge EMS. And they're asking to occupy the park from about 6:45 a.m. to 1 p.m. on Saturday, September 4th. Yep, trash arrangements kind of the same with Republic Services, and they have volunteers kind of sweep the course too to pick up water cups and that kind of thing. And then the Lions Club is going to be doing their usual, using the mobile grilling trailer to serve up burgers. So yeah, just a lot of the same, no alcohol, anything like that. They have paid the $100 and the $500 deposit. So everything looks in order.
Comments from the table?
I just noticed, not that it's probably a big deal, but on the list of the neighbors that they got signatures from, it says please see attached documents, and those aren't attached.
Okay.
But I know personally that they have volunteers going around and getting them, so I think it's just a matter of making sure it's with the packet and we actually vote on it.
Okay, great. I'll make sure.
Good
I'll
grab.
go through the packet they gave me, but this came out of it, so I don't think that maybe it's just attached to one of them.
It's probably pages because they have to go through.
Yeah,
If we don't have it, so.
we'll get it.
Okay.
Thanks, Jody.
Any other discussion at the table? Tom?
I don't have any problem with the fun run at all. In fact, I think it's a great thing. I've been getting a lot of kickback from people in Ward 2 and others about some of the other events that the town, that the city is authorizing or is allowing on city property. Mostly things which relate to noise, traffic congestion, pollution, and that kind of thing. And I think that this might be a good time to just say that I think we need to revisit the city's plan, or if you want to call it that, on how these things are allowed and the charges that might incur. Obviously, there's a difference between the fun run and some of the other events that have happened recently in terms of how it affects the neighborhood, the taxpayers, the citizens of the city, and so on. there's a huge discrepancy between one end and the other end. And I think this needs to be thought out a little more carefully. And I'm getting a lot, and when I say a lot, I mean a lot of feedback, negative feedback about how this town just says, well, you want to have an event, great, we'll close off the streets, we'll do whatever you want. And it's putting a lot of pressure on the town, on our police force, probably our potentially our emergency services. Just wear and tear on everybody. But, you know, I just feel like we need to discuss this at some point. We need to have a real discussion.
Okay.
Are we discussing the fun run?
We're discussing the phone run, but Tom wanted to
I'm
make a
just,
point.
I'm just saying in general, not this particular thing, no problem with that. I don't have, and I have had no feedback on that. But I have had feedback on a lot of, on some of the other events, or whatever, however you want to call them.
I think you have to be careful about picking and choosing what events you think are good for the town, like allowing the fun runs, they close streets. The car show, we close the street. And you'll get certain people that will like this one, but they don't like that one. And you can't really just discriminate against different events. It has, the thing has to go for everyone.
Well,
That's
that's,
the rules too.
We're talking about the fun run.
Okay.
If you want to have something on the work session agenda next time, to have a discussion on that,
okay.
we'll just set aside some time for that.
Yeah, I think we should,
Yeah,
because
'cause
I've also received some negative feedback from some of the events, and I'll just say it out loud from the Meadowfest event, and have several people connect and just say that they're not in favor, they were disappointed with some of the certain things that happened at that event. So, but I think we should talk about it at the next
agree.
working session. I think it'd be good to just hash it out and see if there is something that perhaps it's changes to an application form that, you know, you have to be a little bit more, maybe we have more pointed questions that get to the heart of specific things that might be happening at your event. Yeah, I think it's something that we could chat about at a later time.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, let's try to set some time aside for the next work session to discuss.
Do we need to have a formal request, or how do you want to do this?
No, I think
To
Lonnie's
get
gonna
it
put
on
it
the
on for
agenda.
us.
Yeah,
Lonnie will stay on the work session.
okay.
We'll see how,
Uh,
we're just gonna have to watch, it's gonna be a pretty
Use of
lengthy
land,
discussion.
review, discussion.
We're probably looking at an
Absolutely.
I think
hour. So we'll keep that discussion at an hour and fill in the blanks with the rest.
Yep. No, I agree. I think it needs to be looked at.
Okay. So everybody's in favor of carrying the fun run onto the action next meeting?
Yes.
Yes, of course. Okay. Good.
And we'll make sure to get those neighbor notifications
Okay.
into the packet.
We have, some of our department heads, some of them are contract employees and some of them are just employees. And since everybody else in the whole city has gotten raises in the last 2 years, our contract employees have been kind of left out of that. So therefore, we're making an addendum to their contract. And that's what's sitting in front of you. I'm sure you've all read it, had plenty of days. And this is just renewing that contract. Jim's is for another 3 years and Lonnie's is for another 5. And
Can I ask a question about what you just said about everyone else has received raises? So Jim and Lonnie have not?
Well,
Is that how it?
we have, but, what everybody had gotten this year was a significant increase and stuff. And Jim is, his is coming up anyways for renewal. So in the past, we've just done his and I the same time. So, but we have been, I mean, in our previous addendum, we were getting our whatever, our increase before that and those. So,
they're 3.
but there is some wage discrepancy between the department head and other employees and stuff, which there should be that much discrepancy as well that we looked at. So, and also these numbers are figured into the upcoming budget and stuff. So, but it would, what these numbers won't impact, but what is already put in there for the or for the budget. So.
And then I had another question, because I just wasn't understanding. So on Jim's, under number 1, the last sentence, it says, this agreement / addendum may be extended in writing for additional amounts of time not to exceed 5 years upon mutual agreement of the employer and employee. Now, to exceed 5 years from the original contract date,
No, they
or from,
the addendum,
okay,
and we can put that in there, but to make it clear.
okay. That's originally what I first thought was, from the original contract date, and I'm like, well, that's past. That's definitely more than 5 years, because it was 2014 was the terms of the contract when it was first.
Right, so, where's that?
And when, 14, and then when Mayor Shawnee left, he made an addendum to extend it again.
Okay,
Yeah, so it's been 5 years between the last addendum and these two.
So, about 4.
Mhm.
So, Lonnie, am I to understand that your contract then is up on August 31st, 2021? Is that correct? If this isn't put in, is this actually a renewal of your contract then?
No, see, and that should be different, 5 years beginning. Well, so what that would mean is that's where she was just asking. So if, when next is done in 2021, it's adding the additional 5 years,
Okay. And,
starting September 1st.
and Jim's is March 31st, so Jim's isn't until next March.
Right, yep, so that increase would take effect next April 1st of 2022.
And correct me if I'm wrong, I thought that there was this big thing about state contracts only being for 2 years. Or do we have the ability to have
That's
something
through, there's
different?
MCA code for lawyers and stuff.
Okay,
That
that's
does not
totally
apply to
different.
these.
Thank you. I just was.
There's actually no, I don't believe there's any MCA code. Correct me if I'm wrong. For just
For
city
contract
employees.
employees.
For employee
Okay.
contracts.
Okay.
And we've had, like our original one was Sam Painter helped us with that one. And then Rebecca helped us with the previous. Maybe it was Sam on both. I don't think she was here, but.
She was, yes.
But on that one, Kelly, that you were just
Mhm.
asking.
Yeah.
Last sentence. In number 1.
Yeah.
How do you want me to, how do you think we should put that in there so it's clear?
So it's 5 years from the last, or from the expiration date, not from the original contract date, is that what you're saying?
Right.
I'll work with Dennis and I'll get
Okay,
wording done correctly on that one.
Sounds good. I thought you had something to add.
Which contract are we talking about?
The agenda.
Yeah, both of them, it sounds like it's 5 years beginning at the expiration date. So, for example, Bonnie Hanson, the expiration date would be August 31st, 2021, and 5 years from there on out.
okay,
It's 5 additional years from August. And the same with Tim Bushnell, his contract is for additional 3 years, beginning at the expiration date, so March 31st, 2022, be 3 years from there.
yeah, I guess my question is, it says, the agreement addendum can be extended in writing for additional amounts of time not to exceed 5 years. So,
So when like it, just kind of like what we're doing now. So
Mhm.
we can do another addendum.
But
For the
I understand, that sounds ambiguous.
right,
Yeah.
yeah,
We can iron out the language,
okay.
no problem.
But then Lonnie's is 7 years. This agreement can be extended for additional amounts of time not to exceed 7 years.
And I think when we did the last addendum. We did those just because of our ages,
Mm-hmm.
not to be age discriminatory.
Right.
Or anything, but
Yeah.
he has a lot more years than I do, so that's.
Yeah.
We don't have a copy, right, of the original agreement?
We can get it if you want.
Yeah, I can send it. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I certainly want this to go forward, but maybe
course.
we need to get the Rubik's Cube locked in here before we vote on anything.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think you're right. You know, we'll run it through Dennis.
Okay, yeah, that's all,
And,
right.
Mm-hmm.
You
So-
know, we'll
so
have
that
it
we
on the
don't-
work session before the council
Exactly.
meeting next time, so we'll have
Right,
clear
yeah.
copies. Those of you that want a copy of the original, contact Bonnie and she can send that to you.
Okay.
Okay,
No, we can avoid,
right.
right,
Right.
Any
That's what
other
we wanna.
problems down the road?
yeah.
So,
So, yeah.
so you're saying, let's run this by our city attorney and
Yeah.
make sure it's ironclad, yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
You have great suggestions that we need to.
That is
to-
clear so
to
that
get
people
it a little
can
more clear.
understand what's happening.
I'm good with that.
Yeah.
Any other comments?
I think that this is another case where it's important that it be really clear so that the public doesn't have the same kind of questions that
Mm-hmm.
we had.
Okay.
Get it ironclad.
So we'll run it through Dennison and make those changes, those copies to you. And we'll carry this forward, is that correct?
To another work session,
To another work
Yeah.
session?
not
and
an
then
action. Right.
we'll go work session and then action on it at the council meeting. So next meeting will be a work session, we'll have it on there. And hopefully all those questions are answered.
Okay.
And then we'll also have it on for action.
Okay. Sounds good.
Cool. Questions from the public? Okay. Moving right along. Parks Board monthly report. Is anyone going to present this?
Well, I guess I can.
Okay.
Haven't been to a meeting
You know,
yet,
Just really the main things going on, there's, the highway, there's a lot of beautification projects around the roundabouts, a lot of volunteer hours were put in there. And there was a donation from Stillwater Mine to purchase a lot of this land. And so hopefully that'll be a successful project and the plants will be sturdy enough to survive several years. And, so that was a great project that Courtney put together to try and improve the entrance to town. A couple other things, the fall course, the coal miners has been moved, they're looking at adding new holes. The garden club, it's not in here, but the garden club, some of the benches, wooden benches over there were starting to get deteriorated. They were looking at potentially doing a composite type of plastic seed. They were hoping Parks Board would fund that. Basically determined that they might get too hot. That was the opinion of quite a few people. And a lot of that wood has just been turned over. Some of it has been replaced. A volunteer from the Parks Board stained the wood, put new screws in it, and should have several more years in it again. So that was pretty much a free fix over there. That was done by a Parks Board volunteer. And I guess that's it. We've got, I've been contacted by somebody who has to do 50 hours of community service. And I'm looking for projects for them to do. I think I'm going to point them to fixing the horseshoe pits. They were looking really bad. We had Mike Taylor fix them about 4 years ago, I'm thinking. And they held up pretty well for quite a while, but they're starting to get weeded out and need work again. So I think I'll point them over there. And there's always portions of Moose Trails playground at Lions Park that needs painting. So doing that as well. So I think we'll have 50 hours of labor doing some park maintenance, that kind of work.
Great.
Questions for James and the Parks Board? Tom?
James, that's great. Putting the plants around the roundabout and in some other areas in the street. There was some question last year, about the viability of the irrigation in that area. Is that-
Liability?
Well, the fact that it either didn't work or needed to be turned on or something. It would be a shame to have plants donated and not be able to keep them healthy and alive.
They are being watered, so if I remember right,
I think like the third
Yeah.
bullet point, it says that irrigation was upgraded to provide sufficient water amounts.
Well, that's just what I'm
yeah,
getting at.
yeah, there had been problems with that. You know, it actually went back to the roundabout project. The contractor who put in the plants and the irrigation system was not getting paid by the contractor who was in charge of the project. The landscaper was a sub, and they weren't getting paid. And I don't think they really did the work they were supposed to do with it. We had some of the trees that they planted still had nylon string around the roots.
Yeah,
And that's why some of them died. And the sprinkler system, they never wanted to work on it. Eventually ProCuts kind of took it on and figured out some problems. And we've gotten those taken care of. But it is a pretty tough place, so, you know, some of these plants I don't think are gonna live, some will. And we're just gonna have to keep an eye on what is working, because there's also a lot of chloride that reaches the boulevards. So it's a very alkaline soil, and certain things struggle. You know, Courtney was working on trying to figure out the best plants for that type of soil. And so hopefully there's pretty good success with it, but there'll probably be some things that don't make it, but I think we'll start getting a better handle on what those boulevards can keep alive.
Thank you.
Let's just stick with those.
Okay.
PS.
Do the tennis courts fall under the purview of the Parks Board?
Yes.
Yes.
James, have you looked into that memory I had 15 years ago about one of the tennis courts sitting on a newspaper dump?
You know, I had Courtney, I talked to Courtney about that. I told her to reach out to Richard Gessler about that, because she's worked with Richard on a couple of other things recently, regarding things with Lions Park. I did not hear an update on that.
And I was telling James that when I was on the council in the mid-90s, I think we repaired one of the tennis courts over a bunch of discarded newspapers, not trash or garbage, but newspapers, which would have made it unstable. And I don't want us to throw good money after bad, if in fact my memory is correct. So I just think we should look into it before we write any checks.
Yeah.
Not both courts, just one of them, for whatever particular reason. And Doc Gessling was, he brought it to our attention, and he was kind of on the forefront of that, and that's why James is having Courtney reach out to Doc.
So since we're talking about former dumps, up at the high school, so I've had a couple of residents reach out that are concerned about the giant pile that's being accumulated at the south end. It's probably still on the property, on the school property, but on the south end of Coal Miners Park. It's the things that have been unearthed from the construction that's happening with the CPE center at the high school. And so I just had a couple of people connect and say that they were worried about this giant pile that is in itself its own little landfill. You know, there's trash and there's coal tailings in it, and I guess just the question of is there is there a plan, from Langless to, either haul it away or put it back, I don't know, to, mitigate that, because I think we all know that that parking lot up there right underneath has got serious drainage issues. And so with this giant pile, it might present more of a problem, if it's not taken away or dealt with.
I think that would have to be vented.
Yeah.
If in fact it is a unearthed landfill, I think it requires venting. And I don't know the technical.
You want to check on that for us, Jim?
I will, yeah.
And I think right now the people that were bringing this to my attention, they think it's still on the school property side of it, but it hasn't gone over into the city park, into Coal Miners Park.
Uh-huh.
So then the survey stakes have been taken up, so it's kind of hard to say,
Sure.
but it's just more of something for us to keep our eyes on, to make sure that whatever happens up there is kind of mitigated and put away and figured out before, snows come and.
I'll take a look at that tomorrow and reach out to Langless and
Okay.
see where they're at with that. Now, everything should be brought back up to where it was before,
Mm-hmm.
so there should be no exposed coal flag. There should be at least a couple inches of soil and some sort of wildland grass installed there. But I will reach out to them and make sure they're on that path and take a look at the trash down there again.
See what's in there, yeah.
Maybe I can, it's bad enough, I'll probably need to get rid of it next week or so.
Yeah, it's a pretty big pile, like 20 feet
What we want to avoid is
high.
getting into EPA.
Yeah, we don't want to get,
Red flag in the project.
yeah,
Right.
definitely, we want to keep under the radar on that one.
Any more discussion on the
Thanks, James.
parks? Discussion from the public? All right, we'll move on to public comment. We're opening up the floor to public comment. When you do have a public comment, please step up to the podium, state your name and your residence address, and we will keep everything at 3 minutes. Plus the people that are online can also just go ahead and light up your microphone or show your picture if you have a comment. We're opening it up to public comment.
My name is Betsy McGee, and I live at 523 Southward. We have a very short summer to enjoy in Red Lodge. It seems that our summers, have been co-opted by motorcycle events that get longer and louder each year. They take over the town, create intolerable noise, discourage other forms of tourism. As residents of Red Lodge, we need your help. We need the help from the city. At the very least, help to enforce existing regulations and laws. For example, the open container law and what activities are allowed in residential neighborhoods. I keep wondering who really benefits from these events. I see more and more businesses on Broadway closing during the rally, early or for the duration of the rally, lost revenue and wages as a result. And what is the cost to the city for the increased policing? And the same for the Sheriff's Department and the Montana Highway Patrol. I'm not sure why Red Lodge would have to pay for this. By establishing boundaries for the rally, Red Lodge could rebuild itself back to a family-friendly destination. For example, we could bring in new festivals, events that benefit more of the community and the visitors to Red Lodge, rather than continuing down this slippery slope to becoming a mini Sturgis. Thank you, and I thank you in advance for your help.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Public comment period. Is there any more public comments? Public comments? Public comments? Let's call it.
job, guys.
Yeah.